Patriots are looking to pick themselves up off the turf this week after a very surprising Week 1 loss down in Miami to the Dolphins. And as they do that, let's recap an interesting week because it's a unique week down in Foxborough. It's always strange after a loss. The attitude is clearly a lot different than it is after a win. So they set high expectations for themselves and then don't feel too good after it all comes crashing down, especially the way it did down in Miami. So the biggest storyline, obviously, they're coming off the loss. And now the question is, because it was Week 1 and the sample size is just that, did we overhype them? Or was it just a matter of them having a dud of a performance against a team that played really well, knows them well, competed well, and took advantage of a home atmosphere down in Miami? And now the Patriots have to kind of figure themselves out.
Yeah, or, did they simply get sucked in by the heat? I mean, who knows? It could be a combination of all the things. Whatever it is, they're going to have to fix it because, you don't want to start the season 0-2. It was a tale of two halves. The first half, they got off to a decent start. They were up 20-10 at halftime, and then it was just a complete collapse on both sides of the ball. They got beaten up in the trenches, offensive line, defensive line. It was a mess. And they're going to have to fix things or else, as I said, they're going to be facing an 0-2 hole.
The biggest thing that they have to fix, obviously, as we move to the second biggest storyline of the week, is the offensive line. When you put a 37-year-old quarterback on his back 12 times, he was hit 17 times, wound up on the ground 12 times during that game. That's something nobody can withstand over the course of a season. The Patriots simply cannot allow that type of a performance in terms of protecting Tom Brady again this season. And they're going against a physical Vikings front, but really what it comes down to is the offensive line has to play better. And we looked at the interior linemen all offseason and into camp as the biggest storyline of that line. But Nate Solder allowed 2 sacks. Sebastian Vollmer allowed a sack, and Brady to get hit 4 additional times. Those are their money makers. Those are the guys who have to step up and help the guys inside.
But this was a across-the-board collapse. It was Nate Solder, it was Sebastian Vollmer, it was the whole lot of them. And Brady paid the price. And we know when Brady's pressured up the middle, he's not the same quarterback. Yeah, the Dolphins, that's their money. That's their strength, their defensive line. It was no secret. The Patriots knew coming in Cameron Wake was going to be trouble. Olivier Vernon was going to be trouble. Solder and Vollmer, that's the strength of the Patriots' offensive line. They let them down.
And now, in the third storyline, the Patriots are heading out to Minnesota. It's a little bit of a college atmosphere as they figure out their stadium situation, but Week 2 against a team that played well on both sides of its the offensive line and the defensive line. So there is no, the Patriots don't get the Raiders for another week. So there's no layups right here. They have to figure out their 2 biggest weaknesses right off the bat. They're out back practicing right now trying to figure out how they can beat the Vikings and solve the 2 biggest issues.
Without question. And the Vikings head coach, Mike Zimmer, new head coach, comes fresh from Cincinnati. He was the defensive coordinator in Cincinnati. And last year, as the defensive coordinator, they held the Patriots to 6 points. And they didn't make the Patriots offense look particularly good in that game. Same kind of thing. Strong defensive front, pressures on Brady. He's brought that mentality here to Minnesota. It's not going to be a cakewalk. It's not going to be easy. The Patriots' offensive line is going to face another challenge with this Minnesota defense. So they're going to have to get their act together.
I think that Cincinnati defense is more talented than this Minnesota defense, but there's another thing at play. Mike Zimmer, I think, is smart enough to know that he can attack a Patriots' weakness. I wasn't sold that Joe Philbin and his staff would be able to do that, so I think you've got a better coach, a more tenacious coach that the Patriots have to prepare for this week. Makes me think back to 2006 when the Patriots went out to Minnesota, and all week long, everybody talked about how are they going to be able to run the ball? How can you run the ball? You're not going to be able to run the ball. The Patriots came out and passed the ball like 7,000 consecutive times to start the game. So who knows? Maybe they got something up their sleeves. Belichick certainly knows how to prepare, especially when his team is fighting up against some adversity. So we'll see how the Patriots handle it this week. You can follow our coverage on BostonHerald.com, in the newspaper as always, and on the Blitz blog.